Flosstube. My name is Becca, and I'm SamBrie Stitches here on Flosstube and Instagram. This is another special edition of Interview with a Flosstuber. I'm very excited today to be here with Chrissy. She is finally a farm girl. I am a huge fan of her channel. She actually really got me excited about Twin Peak Primitives patterns, the way that she stitches them. She's a model stitcher. But the other really cool thing about her channel is she's very personable. I like people who, kind of tell about their life a little bit. She also lets us know that it's okay to personalize the projects as well, which is something I myself need, and I'm sure many others, which is pretty neat. And her stitching is just absolutely beautiful. She just enabled me to start a Christmas pattern in her last video, so we'll be starting that soon. So if you're not familiar with her channel, I will have everything linked down below. So how are you doing today?
Good, thank you. Very good. Yeah, excited to be here.
I am very excited. We're going to get to know you a little bit more, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So let's jump in. The first question is, why did you start a Flosstube, and were there any particular motivations?
Originally I had thought it would be hysterical to start one with my mom. That was kind of like the first thing, because she was a Spitfire and she could get me to do anything. And I thought it would be a comical team because I liked the Pam and Steph mother-daughter playoff. So that was kind of first in my head. And then, after she had passed, it was like, I really still wanted to do it because I really felt like there was this huge opportunity to get to, I still think it's really awesome to bring cross stitch, light it up a little bit in the world more. And then I just felt like, because of my situation, a lot of times with special needs and staying at home, I think that it's brought so many friends into my world that it was just another opportunity to meet new people and, chat. And it seemed like it really, to me, when I was watching other Flosstubers, it actually does feel like you're in a room with them.
Yep.
That most of the time it feels like they are absolutely your friend and you are either having your coffee or your tea and stitching. And so it's so enjoyable that I just continued to get hyped up on it. And I just thought, well, it's either going to be like this. I'm either going to have something to offer, something to inspire, and I just made a commitment to kind of stay true to myself and what I like, because I've got those things where it's like, I still love 28 count. It's whatever works for me. And so I think that was really it. I don't think there was anything underlying, but the fact that I just thought that community was just so fun. Yeah. And if I hadn't done that, even though I found a lot on Instagram after, but there are several that I didn't know until I found their Flosstube first. So yeah, that was really it. Just engaging is so great.
Yeah,
it's so great.
Yeah, this community is amazing. And that's what I really like about your channel. I think you and I are pretty similar. I think in our the way that we come across in our videos. You like to share your personal life a bit, and you share your stitching and that kind of stuff. And it really does make it feel like, that you're having a conversation with somebody, but they can't talk back. They're just talking at you. But it's still like you're in the room with a friend, and that's what I enjoy about the videos too. So yeah.
I love your one. I think it was maybe 2 ago. And I think it was one of your Halloween quick reveals, a box. You came home from work and you're on the porch, and that rooster was going off. And I loved it because you were like, okay, and he's still going.
Yeah,
and I'm
thinking, Carl.
Right. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, that was my lurch. And so I'm talking to you like, oh yeah, girlfriend, he's not gonna stop.
I love that.
Whoever told me that roosters only crow at 6 a.m. Yeah, no.
That's what I thought too. But that was because I've never lived out in. Yeah, he goes all day.
All day.
no matter what. I was like, okay, you're a little confused, but I guess I was confused.
Yeah, like it's funny because they do go to sleep and then they shut down. But then they'll do their 6 a.m. But then, yeah, it's all day off and on. And
It's
like,
great.
that's a fallacy.
Yeah, and he's become pretty popular. I mean, I think one of my subscribers named him Carl, or I named him Carl. I don't know, but it's just a constant thing. I thought, yeah, I love stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is a subscriber question, and they were just wondering if you had a blog of any sort.
I did, but I haven't done it in a long time. I did about, let's see, maybe about 5 years ago when I very first started Instagram. I did it because my sister she was doing Instagram and I did not get it. I did Facebook, but really wasn't a huge social media person at all. And my sister would put her kids out and I'd be like, I haven't seen pictures in a while. And she's like, you need to go to Instagram. I'm like, I don't even know what it is. And I'm like, how do you have time for that? She goes, it's just all about the pictures. And I'm like, okay, about the pictures. I don't get it. But so ultimately, when we first rented a farmhouse, when we first moved out to the country, we rented this farmhouse and we did get like a few chickens. And she convinced me to try Instagram. And it was funny because that's kind of how it all came into play. But, you know, it was just kind of one of those things where it just kind of went from there. So, yeah, but.
I'm the same way. I don't get Twitter. I don't understand that at all. I finally got Instagram, but Twitter, I can't do. Not at all.
Yeah, now it's just funny because one led to the other, and I started understanding what the hashtag was, and you know, now I look back and just laugh. But at some point in that time, I did have a web page called Finally a Farm Girl, and I did share some of my works in pictures. Right. But that seemed to take away from stitching time. So after about a year, even though I really liked it, but it got time consuming. Yeah. More so than what I wanted to do. The dog snuck out.
Yeah.
It's gonna be real life.
Okay. I was gonna say you're gonna hear everybody's home. So you're gonna hear people walking upstairs. So it's all good.
Yeah.
You and I both do the real life videos anyway, so it's okay. All the noise and all the fun.
But yeah, so no blog a long time ago.
Well, it's pretty neat though, that the reason you got into Flosstube was, you know, your mom and wanting to do it with your mom, and then Instagram was your sister. So it's kind of like, you know, a family affair of social media, which was kind of neat to get you into it. So that's pretty awesome.
It's a big joke now because, you know, my sister doesn't hardly do that. I mean, she uses Instagram for family and they just laugh now, you know, because I'm all about the hashtag. I'm like, you got to do this. You got to play games.
Awesome. Now you know more. Funny. So how did you learn to stitch and how long have you been stitching?
I've been stitching since I was 10. So I was born in 67. My first piece was finished in 76. And I give kind of equal. My mom taught me, but it was a stamped cross stitch. Okay. Like one of the stamped ones, and it was a kit, and it was for my grandparents. I just remember my dad helped me. I've shared the piece before, but like my dad, it was like a wedding sampler, and it was two cutesy husband wife with the veil and everything. And then my dad had really good penmanship, still does, and he put their anniversary date in there. And then I embroidered that, so it had mixed, and I gave that to her for Christmas. And then after she passed, I got it back and I kept it in the original frame I gave it to her in, which was really cheap. And then about a year ago, I think I had it reframed, and on the back, I found the picture of me giving it to her in my little quilted polyester robe, you know.
Oh, wow.
And so I taped that to the back so that my kids know. So that was my first finished piece in 76. And basically, both my mom and my grandma really, really taught me. but my mom was there for that one, and it, you know, was kind of stamped, and they guided me through that. And and they had my grandmother and my mom had I shared this recently. I shared the newspaper article, but they had a craft store called the Janley Craft Shop when I was young. And my dad pulled out the picture of their opening day. It was so cool. So I want to get that frame, but I had shared that because actually I didn't know this, but my great grandmother was there for opening day. So in the picture on the newspaper, it was my great grandmother, my grandmother, and my mom. And they're all cool. Yeah, they're all dressed in their 70s, and they all have corsages, and what a treasure. So, and they took their two names. My mom's name was Jan, and my grandma's, the middle name was Lee, Virginia Lee. So they just made it the Jan Lee Craft Shop. So I used to hang out there, and I told my dad, I'm like, I love that because I can remember that. It was when they would carve, like when you would stack all the different, you would buy the same piece of paper artwork like 5 times and use that clear glue. And I can't think what the name of it was.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it was decoupage or whatever, but they made like shadow boxes. And there was like 5 layers of it, and they'd cut it with the X-Acto knife. And it was so cool. So
That's
cool.
So neat.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely a frame-worthy newspaper clipping for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You should put that next to your first cross stitch. That would be really neat displayed together. That would be perfect.
Yeah, I have it hanging in my room. So yeah, that'd be good. Yeah. But that's kind of where it came from.
Pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So do you have a favorite project that you've stitched so far? I can see from behind you, you've stitched a lot. So.
You know, that one's hard because I know you get it. Some are more personal and they can be really tiny. So the 2 that I would say are my favorite, I don't think I could pick one. But the Lincoln sampler is the biggest, and I just I kind of cherish that thing. I just knowing the path of where it started to where it ended. It's that piece that if no one else likes it, I don't care. Like I just absolutely love it so much, and the history that goes with all of it. Yep. But my favorite one, stitching wise, is the Patriotic Christmas Eve, hands down.
Which is the one I want to stitch.
Yeah, hands down. Yeah. I stitched it in 1 week flat, and monogamous, you know, used to be a monogamous stitcher. So it's very different to now stitch, you know, off, you know, many. Yeah. But yeah, that one from the first stitch to the idea that in my head, you know, and then working with the twins and having so much fun, and then seeing what she did. And that she's stitching on a flag. I mean, it was just
when you showed that, perfect.
And you can, you know, it's also another one you can still personalize it. You can do more or less. But I just remember stitching Mr. and Mrs. Claus first, getting through it, and then I just remember it was so fun because I'm like, okay. Is there any way you can squeeze a mouse in this somewhere? Because I just kept feeling, I love mice at Christmas. Yep. Whether it's, you know, from the Nutcracker or so in 2 seconds, she sent me something. She's like, how's this? I'm like, perfection. So I'm like, okay, every single one of these has to have a mouse in it.
I love that.
Over. So
love
that one I just love.
Yeah, I can't wait. When you showed that, I was like, that's perfect, you know, because I had the intentions this year of doing a patriotic Santa display. Okay. Because I found a Santa with the flag at Goodwill, like a decor piece. And I was like, okay, well, now this is what I want to do. I did not get to it, but I will next year. But I'm definitely stitching that. And I want to stitch the one that you're working on now. I love that it's a series. So yeah. And I hope if the twins are watching this, they mentioned that they might be doing a Bigfoot piece for me. So fingers. That would be so cool.
Stitching that one.
Yeah, I'm stitching that one. I think it's really cool. It's gonna go up on my wall. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I'm excited about that. I love how you work basically with them. Like you have your ideas, can we do this? And then bam, it's done. So that's pretty good. I love it.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, it was the One Nation Under God was the first piece where I had been doing I'd been model stitching for him, but then I just kind of, you just have this thing weighing on your heart, and it was at the very beginning of COVID. It was really early on, and it was just kind of like so much stress out there. And I'm like, why is everybody forgetting that we're just all one nation? And I finally, you don't want to add to their plate, and you don't want to feel like you're, stepping on any toes. But it was like the first idea, like, hey, I just want to lay something out there. I don't care what you do with it, but I feel like this is something that the world needs. What do you think? And I kind of just went through, it's got to be something with words, one nation under God. It's got to be something where we revolve around, as a whole, as a reminder. And so, and that's how that came to life. And again, she just always takes whatever's on your heart, and she can make it a reality. So she can do that. She can do Bigfoot.
I'm hoping so. But I started the One Nation too after seeing yours. Yeah, so I've started that too. I think you're making me fall in love with the because we have similar tastes. Stitching. So you're making me fall in love with all of the different patterns.
I think this year I probably will not put away, now that there's two, the Santa and Mrs. Claus. I don't know where I'll put it, but I saw one time somewhere somebody had an actual all year Christmas room. Like it was just a bedroom. Cool. I don't have that, but there may be a day that I have a wall that just, if it's patriotic and Christmas together, maybe, I don't know, because I hate to put them away. And now that there's two, I could stagger them. And I just love the thought of at home with Santa. It's like, who doesn't want to be at home with Santa?
Yeah. I love that series. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know we probably touched on this a little bit, but what do you enjoy most about stitching? As you laugh.
Oh gosh. This was the one where I'm like, I can't answer that. I mean, I can, but it's, it's everything. It's everything to me. I think that's, what do I enjoy most? I think it's the time that I spend relaxed. It gives something back to me that other things can't. So what it gives me the most, I think, is that therapy, that de-stress, that, comfort zone. It doesn't matter what I'm stitching on, really, unless I guess I don't tend to put things in timeout, but I know I get it. Like I get that. So, but I think it's, that would be the biggest thing it gives me. But then it decorates my house. Mm-hmm. I've always been more of an older soul when it comes to that kind of stuff. So I don't get that when people are like, well, I have to buy this and I have to do this and I got to get it. And I'm like, yeah, I just stitch it. I just, So it's everything.
Yeah. And what I don't get, because I totally understand that it's calming, it's centering, and it drives me crazy when people say, I don't have the patience for that. I get that all the time when I stitch. I bring my stitching everywhere, car point, whatever. And there's always somebody that has to make that comment. And I'm like, have you tried it? Because there's really something like I can't think of the word, meditative, I guess is the word. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Therapeutic. And I don't know, stitching, and a lot of people answer similar to, how you feel and how I feel. And I just tell them they have to try it.
I think that was funny. I think Kyle put that out where someone said to him, like, oh my gosh, you have to have so much patience in order to cross stitch. Mm-hmm. I think that they forget that there's a ton of other things they're out there doing that require the same amount of patience. You know, I have zero patience, it seems like, when it comes to wanting to buy something from my stash. I mean, like, I have none. I need it. I need it now. That's why we all get the Laura stat. You know, even my husband, when I say stat, he gets it.
He's like, I got it right now.
So, I mean, you know, but I think that's so funny that it does take patience. I had a woman, I'm interested in where we live now is a community. So it's called the Plantation, and there's like 17 little neighborhoods inside the Plantation. And it's just perfect for us because there's a restaurant inside here. There's sidewalks everywhere, so I can do all this kind of stuff with Philip and all that kind of stuff. So it's been really fun. Well, they're doing an art show, and I read about it, and I want to be a little involved, but it said fiber and textiles. So I was interested in, would I be able to just show like the Lincoln sampler or something? Yeah. But they still consider that a craft. What? Yeah. And so the lady, I had her come and not interview me today, but she said, can I see it? I'm like, absolutely. So we had a good conversation about the fact of that's not a craft. Those bigger pieces and some of the ones, I said, it has changed so much. She's like, I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to fight because even if, she goes, what if it was just, if you could just show it and we could open their eyes to the fact that this is, dyed floss, or you're picking your color conversion, the story behind it. I'm like, I don't care. I just wanted to be involved, but I do think that it needs to be, like she's saying, I think it needs to be brought to their attention. This is not your Walmart kit, which there's a time and a place for those too. You and I both firmly believe that if that's what you're stitching on, then, and you're happy with it, then you need to be happy with it. And by golly, display it. Because that's what I would have I would never have my kids, little one, start with a kit with the thread in there because it'll make them crazy. I mean, they've got so much. That's why I love watching Kyle's The Kit Parade. I know, because like he's right. If you're gonna pick one with the floss all in there, don't get it all tangled, or chuck it to the side and go refresh if it's got the DMC list. But I think that some of these pieces, they're very different when we're working on something as big, like the one you're doing for your husband. That's big. It's detailed. It doesn't happen overnight. That's crazy that they don't consider cross stitch part of it. That's insane, because it's intricate. Like it's a lot of work and a lot of time, and it's fiber art. In their mind, it's considered because there's a pattern. That's where they draw the distinction. And she's like, did you have anything to do with the pattern? And with Lincoln, I said, well, I collaborated. I'm very much part of it. I can tell you where, but she's like, did you draw any of the motifs? I'm like, no, that would require me to have an actual application. And then that's where it comes into like, what's my priority? Well, to be honest, at night, my priority is stitching, because that's where my passion is. That's where my relaxation comes from. So we all got to have our thing. But so I'm waiting. She said she was gonna work on it and go to bat and see. So I hope she's a good batter. I'll let you have to keep us all updated. Yeah, definitely. Because I think you're making a huge, I don't know the word, but for the cross stitch community, how big we are, and people don't realize how large the community is. And you just doing something as simple as sitting down with this person to open their eyes and try to get into an art show to open more eyes is incredible for the stitching community. So that's awesome. We have this beautiful clubhouse per se, and it's called the Manor. And she said it's a fine arts judged art show in February. And I'm like, okay, let me. So I was thankful she at least came and looked.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, that was funny that was the underlying criteria is, does it have a pattern? Because everybody else, whether it's oil painting or chalk or, pastels. And I thought to myself, that's kind of funny because we just do it with floss.
Yeah. I call it painting with floss. It's basically, once you're done with the cross stitch and you step away, some of them actually look like paintings.
Right. Right.
Painting with floss. That's how we could pitch it. Painting with floss.
Painting with floss, though.
Right?
But we will see.
So we're going to get out of Stitchy Talk a little bit and kind of learn more about you. The next question is, what's your favorite genre of book or movie?
Movie would be romantic comedy. Definitely not your thriller person. I do like a good legal thriller. I was a paralegal for years. Loved it. And then it was, time to stay home with kids. But I did that for a good long while. And I did I liked the crime stuff. So legal thrillers, I'm okay with. Gore, horror, not so much.
Yeah.
But a good romantic comedy, hope floats, loved it, could watch it 1,000 times. Yeah. A happy feel, always a happy feel. That's kind of my thing. Yeah. But I do like 48 Hours. I'm like hardcore into Dateline. I don't know why. I just,
that's more of a true crime type of show. Yeah. So it's a realistic, type of thing. So, yeah.
So that's kind of, I'm either watching Flosstube or 48 Hours or Dateline or romantic comedies. Bizarre. Just a bizarre.
Not so much.
Or Snow White,
It's good to be eclectic. So what fictional place would you most like to go to?
I think this is one of the weirdest things to come up with because
like an off the wall question, but it also is interesting to learn. So
because my first thing is I love Snow White. And I'm like, oh, I would go to Snow White's cottage. And then you're a fool. The witch is coming with the apple. No, I mean, so I think the only one that would be if there was an actual fictional farm that all the animals were perfect and goats weren't escaping and roosters weren't coming after you with their, if that fictional place was real, I would go there and hang out with all the animals and stitch under a tree little bo peep. I don't know.
Yeah, actually, that would be pretty cool.
Liz and Deb and their cow Hank.
Yeah.
Okay. So Hank I did not get to cuddle with a cow in the grass. That was one animal that did not, I tended to rescue and help people rehome. And so some of those were not of your cuddly nature.
Right.
And so if one of those farms existed, and I tell Deb all the time, I'm coming to meet Hank. I'm going to stitch and lay in the grass with Hank. And because the none of the poo or the drool bothers me.
Yeah.
So I'm all for it, if that makes any sense. So if there's a farm out there, but I don't think Bill Donald's farm is.
No, that's so funny because my older daughter and I were just talking about farm animals the other day. And she has this fantasy of wanting to have all the tiny farm animals, all the miniature ones, and have them all be friendly and lovey and all that kind of stuff.
I'm with her on that farm.
Yeah, that would be so cool. So cool. And you sit out there and stitch and they don't chew or drool or do anything to your stitching. They just kind of relax next to you.
Yes. I had at the very beginning on Instagram when we got the first 4 chickens, there is such thing as, amazing farm animals that are so therapeutic. And so I had one chicken named Laverne, and I don't think we were following each other back then because this is going to go back a good 6 years, but it was at the beginning of finally a farm girl. And Laverne she's the picture in my profile picture.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I can't change it. And when we rented that farmhouse, she was there for 2 years, and she was like, if you sat down in the grass, she would come over and sit with you right up to you. I have pictures of her laying on the porch when Philip would lay down and play with toys. She would come over to his quilt and just lay right there, not in his face. She knew your personal bubble. She would rock. I could literally sing her to sleep just as a joke. But yeah, I just, they're there. You tell your daughter they're out there. But something happens when you go from 1 to 20.
Yeah.
That you can't give that time. And goats are definitely, they grow up. They're not baby goats forever. What you see is not what you get all the time. But there's nothing like a baby goat. It's just
right. Yeah, no, I totally get that. My aunt has a couple of goats, and she's always posting pictures of them, and they're fun. They're a lot of fun. So this might go along with that. If you could choose to do anything for a day, what would it be?
Oh, I know this one. Good. I would go to the attic with my mom. Like, that would be, if I could go there for a day. Yeah. Hands down. Summer school. I could get very specific on that one. Even with no budget, could we just work that one in there?
Yep.
No budget.
Anything you want to do for a day.
With Jean, having lunch. I don't know what, but yeah, I could completely get into that one for sure.
I think I'd be right there with you. Just like a bucket list of wanting to go to the attic.
Right. I think she's one of those that, she's just so real herself that I don't know when I'll ever get there. And I wait for them to put out, their Flosstube every now and then. And there's just something about her. There's just something about her that you just, you feel like she's the mother goose, wise person over all cross stitch. Like, that's just how I see her. And I'm like, I want to be there. I want to be there with her.
And so she's just an amazing, prolific stitcher. Like, there's no way that I could stitch on counts that she's stitching on. It's somebody said once that, and I think that like nailed it on the head. And that was like, she's leaving a legacy for generations beyond generations, because maybe it would filter through you to your, kids and on down. I mean, who knows? But I could see that even if it wasn't from, mine. I mean, I love that I have an older daughter that stitches, but we stitch very different, but I still love it just the same. I think that's the other thing that Flosstube and Instagram bring, is you have a respect for other types of cross stitch. Yep.
Where when you're out just looking for yourself, you only see what you like.
Yep.
But when you're watching Flosstube and you're watching Jessie Marie does stuff, or you, and you're, it's different textures, it's different sizes. It just gives you this huge awareness of what's out there that I didn't know before. So,
that's why the community is so amazing. I have an older daughter that stitches too, and we have different tastes.
Yeah.
But she stitches on Ada like me, but as far as the pattern taste is different. But it's a blessing to have, we both have the older daughters that stitch, and hopefully they'll just hand that down if they have kids or whatever. So,
I'll never forget, because that's when you have a favorite, like you get that connection to it. But she had done, her dad used to say he was afraid of Bigfoot. It was like a big joke, this long standing, kind of like Fox and Rabbit, the whole like
the Wiki Stitcher thing.
Yeah. So, and so for when he was working, she did I think it was off Etsy, but either way, she stitched him a Bigfoot, the head or something, Sasquatch or something like that. Yeah. But anyways, it was actually, I would never stitch it. And it actually turned out really cute. It was so funny. And he had it in his office, and unfortunately, he was sick and he passed away. And that's all she cared about getting back. And I get it. She's like, I need my Bigfoot. So like she had to reach out to like his boss and did it come, was it in the office and where was it? And she finally got it back. But I mean, you know, it's just one of those things that connection to me, cross stitching has this huge personal connection, because you're not stitching it if someone's not going to like it. You know, what you're giving to someone is, you're either stitching it because you love it or someone else is going to love it, or so. Yeah, it's personal. It's all very personal.
And that's what I love. I think that's what I love the most about stitching is the meaning behind, you know, a lot of the pieces. Like I stitch a lot of core type things that don't have much meaning. They're just there for decorations.
Yeah.
You know, some of like the bigger pieces and some of what you have behind you, they have stories and they have meanings, and they're going to go to certain people and that kind of stuff. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So do you have any other hobbies besides cross stitch?
Sometimes I feel like I just a master of none. Like I dabble in everything, but you know, that's kind of I forget how they say that. You know, where you know a little everything, but you're a mess. But I love doing DIY projects, as far as give me a piece of junk wood dresser, nightstand, and then I like to upscale furniture, especially making it look primitive. Yeah, that's I love doing that. I don't have the room anymore to keep bringing the pieces in, but I got to tell you,
I hear you.
I'm that one where it's like, don't stop near that. Everybody's put all that at the curb. Just don't let me look. Because
that's why I go to Goodwill so much.
Yeah. Because so I think painting is very relaxing too. Painting furniture is to me anyways. And I like distressing it. So I think that's why I'm really getting a kick out of the boxes, because I'm getting my fix on that in the Mod Podge. I do crochet, but I really honestly don't know how to read a pattern. I am either a single crochet, double crochet, granny square, and that's fine with me because I just don't need to look at a pattern then, and that's fun too. Sometimes it's nice to not look at a pattern. So that's what crochet, you know, will do. And I really love hand embroidery. I got into crazy quilting several years back. My grandma got into that, and she got into the history real hardcore. But for me at that time, I could only afford to do a certain amount, but it was basically so interesting to learn about how these women did these crazy quilts and the ripping of your fabric. And there is
what exactly is crazy quilt?
I did like table runners and sweatshirts, but if you look up crazy quilting, a real crazy quilt is typically out of velvets and silks. And what you would do is you would take scraps material, and you just fold. It can be a raw edge, and you fold it under to get a straight edge. And you cross over a piece of fabric, and then you use an embroidery design to stitch it closed.
Okay.
And so you end up with, you have no real design. And but you would have like, you don't kind of go in a circle. You want to have those straight edges that a quilt would have. And then you just have all sorts of different, I'll show it on my next Flosstube. I think I showed one, but it's usually you would use the pearl cotton, you know, the DMC pearl cotton that's in the 5, like the thicker stuff, but you can use any. A lot of them used silk ribbon, and they would make bows, and then you would tack it down with French knots. But then you create animals and a scenery inside your block. So the goal was get all your pieces stitched down, and then you would stitch inside the blocks something of meaning. So the initials, the dates. And so it's historic. You know, I'll share one.
Yeah, that would be really neat. That would be really neat to kind of learn more about and see.
They're very heavy, like and they're hard to find. And typically when you do find them, sometimes there's kind of deteriorating apart. But if you can find a good old crazy quilt, some do have, you can kind of just tell, it's kind of like the schoolgirl samplers. You can kind of tell the wealth that was involved.
Oh, that
You
makes
know what I
sense.
mean?
Yep.
So there are some that have beautiful sequins and buttons, and they always would stitch a cobweb and a spider on it. For the spider represented good luck.
Oh,
So they're really a real true crazy quilt would have a cobweb with either a stitched spider or a brooch. Yeah, really, really cool. But that is what brought me into the embroidery world with all the French knots, and that's why that doesn't bother me to do
yeah, the French
for
knots.
Santa
Yeah.
beard.
I know you were
Yeah.
talking about the French knots. I was like, okay.
Yeah, you don't have to, but I mean, it's just something where all of a sudden you learn, like the buttonhole stitch.
Yeah.
To do the little blocks on the back of your ornaments. I mean, it's nice because those two elements go together. But that's really, yeah.
That's pretty neat. I'm excited to learn and see the crazy quilt. That'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, look it up. It's got great history. Great history.
So this is one of my most favorite questions that I ask. And it's, how would your friends describe you?
Oh. Y'all are my friends, so I don't know. See, this works for me because I don't I think they would think I was genuine. I hope they think I'm kind, generous in the way where I guess my true thing is if you want to learn, I'll stop anything and help you learn, because I think that's how my family was. And so it doesn't matter if it was painting. I've always had friends and I always seem to enable them. I always seem to get them involved somehow.
Very convincing.
Yeah, that's how my mom was. And so when I say generous, I just mean like, that's how my mom, she would have stopped anything, and I think that just becomes inspiring, because if you get either a young kid or, somebody in their 60s who maybe they're retired or staying home and they've never had a hobby type thing. Mm-hmm. I don't want you to live without it, because I know how much it brings to me. So we're going to learn right now.
Share the love and the joy and the passion. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. But
I love that question, because it makes you kind of think about what others think about you. I guess it doesn't matter that much to me what others think about me, because I'm me. But I just love, kind of hearing what.
I think the older I think it changes, because I think the older you get, I think my girls think that what I represent out there is not what they see. And yet I think it's just me. And they're like, you don't sound like that. I'm like, yes, I do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's me too.
Like, no, you're just mom. I'm like, seriously, this is her. But the older you get, I do think you become this more authentic self.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think there's a better representation of who you are. And let's be serious. If you're willing to put yourself out there on Flosstube, and, I said it from the very beginning, it's just going to be whatever it is, because it's either going to be this, and then I want to get stitching,
Right. Yep.
Don't ask me. I don't want to find any of my pieces at Goodwill later, but maybe if they do, somebody nice will rehome it like we do, because occasionally, I don't know about you, but there are some pieces I feel so bad. I'm like, you got to come home.
I have a prairie schooler hanging in my dining room right now that I found at Goodwill. Yeah. I found one of my pieces at Goodwill myself.
I did too. Wait. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was real bad. It was just a decor piece that a friend had that got rid of it, and then I bought it back for like $3.50 at Goodwill. I cried. It was the dumbest little piece, but I cried. I was like, they tried to give it to me for free.
I love that you said that, because I used to do ceramics, and I still love it, but they tend to be where you got to store them.
Yeah.
They're glass. So I love doing ceramics, and I got into making these snowmen or Santa plates one year, and I gave it to a family member, and I found it at Goodwill, and I just remember one of my kids going, "Didn't you paint those one time?" I'm like, And I knew the glitter and the placement. So yeah, I'm
Isn't
with
that
you.
like, it's funny now, but it's like the worst feeling ever when you're standing there and you're like, seriously?
That's mine. Yeah.
Because I was in tears and I brought it up to the register and she was like, are you okay? And I said, yeah, this is just, I made this. And she was like, you made this? I was like, yeah, I made it. And she's like, oh, well then you don't have to pay. No, I'm going to pay for it.
Right.
I made it. I'm going to pay for it.
Yeah. That's a whole new level of regifting. Like, I don't even know what you call when you buy your own stuff back at Goodwill, but I'm in your club. So it's okay. It's okay. I totally feel it.
The sad people club buying our stuff back at Goodwill. But yeah, no, it's funny now, but it was not funny then.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I gotcha.
It's crazy. So how do you prefer to stitch? Do you use like a hoop, a Q-snap, a frame?
No, I stitch in hand. I didn't always. I used to use Q-snap for a long time. And I really like those. But after a while, I don't know if it was just typing from being a paralegal or whatever, but it really got to my wrist. And I thought I was working on a bigger piece. I just remember that. It was making me crazy because none of those clips existed then, all those little wonderful things now that are there with the magnets, that none of that was there. And I used to clip with hair clips. And ultimately I thought
would get tangled on it. And
so I thought, let me just try it. Let me just try stitching in hand because I embroidered not in a hoop. So I thought, how different can it be? And I knew keeping tension was going to be the key. Could I do that? And so that was it. I mean, I never went back. And I've tried little pieces thinking that would be fun and so light to hold. And it's like, I can't even do it now. So
yeah. I hear you on like the arm pain. I had to get a lap stand because I have Q snaps and I can't do the in hand because I get like my hand cramps up. But But so I had to get a lap stand. But my daughter is stitching this big piece and she just stitches in hand and like I'm like, she taught herself that. Just don't touch a Q snap.
Yeah, don't pick it up. Yeah,
don't pick it up. But
I got those ones that are kind of rubber. They have a wood grain look to them, and I picked some of those up for finishing actually. But I'm tempted to try those one time just for the fun of it on a medium-sized project. Just to see. They look nice when you take your picture, because for us stitching in hand, when I'm finally trying to get a progress picture, it's all like crumpled up on the left. So, wherever, but it's all about the picture,
Yeah. Well, Instagram, all about the picture. Right. I'm too excited. Like I just finished a piece tonight and I just put it on my lap and took a picture. I'm like, I don't care. I didn't iron it. I didn't do anything. Meh. Sometimes I do placement things, but if it's crumpled, it just shows you were working on it and it's loved.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you have like a preferred fabric that you lean towards when you stitch? Or you kind of whatever?
It's been 28 for a long time. And only because I, just like everybody else, I kind of had a gap. I didn't stitch forever since I was 10 years old. It went off and on. But the 28 count has kind of been my thing for a good long while, mostly because I can do it without a light during the day with Philip. I can pick it up, take it with me. I love Jobelin. Before I found Flosstube and before I even had a local needle shop, I really didn't travel too much before. And I mean, like an hour to me, it didn't seem like a long time, but now it's like once a week I'm going up there. Once you get your eyes open to a local needle store that's within an hour, that's nothing. You just make a day out of that. But usually, I used to love the Lugana at Hobby Lobby. That was a good long while, and I just dyed it myself.
Yeah. Whatever you can have access to. Yeah.
Right. So that was for a long time. And then Flosstube was just like the downfall of Etsy and learning about Seraphim, which I've never tried.
Yeah.
I've just recently tried. Dude, it's just like, there's so much to try. I want to try Fox and Rabbit linens. I think I have one of their blues, but it's just, that's when you start, I need to start building up a linen collection or fabric collection per se, more patterns, but the patterns are cute.
I know, right?
It's so hard.
No.
And now I blend it on Flosstube. I have to.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no
Flosstube is like enabling. It's crazy. I just organized all my patterns and there is no way that I need any more. No. And here I am still buying patterns and I'm never going to touch. I don't even think I'll ever touch like 80% of what I have. Like, a lot. So yeah.
I always still hear I'll always hear my mom say stuff like, well, there are many other bad habits that I could have that I don't have. And she's like, so I don't care. If I don't stitch this, you can stitch it or you can sell, whatever. But there are so many other things that you could do out there that's worse with your time.
That's so funny that you said that and my husband doesn't care what I buy or what I do. Yeah. We got into this conversation he takes me to lunch every Saturday at work. And so driving back from lunch to drop me back off at work, we got in this conversation about an order or something that was coming. I was like, watch for this package. It's supposed to come. And he was like, oh, another package, like, haha. And I'm like, I could be doing drugs. All right.
Right.
Yeah. I'm like, I could be doing drugs right now and spending all that money. So no, but he really doesn't care. But it was funny that you mentioned that because I was like,
yeah, I do like the shirt that says stitching is cheaper than therapy.
Yep. Yeah.
Randy disagrees with that wholeheartedly. It's way more expensive than therapy.
Yep. That is true. That is true. Oh my gosh. So do you have a favorite place that you've traveled, and did you bring stitching along when you went? I know you kind of mentioned you don't really travel too much, but
well, I can tell you I didn't take stitching with me. I have been, my parents, when I was a kid, we traveled quite a bit. I did go to Paris for my senior trip. I took 4 years of French. So I've been to the Walden City of Quebec. I've been to, Paris, and I do want to stitch something, maybe a red work piece with the Eiffel Tower in it, just for that time frame. But I was in a senior, so I wasn't stitching then. I've been to Germany and Austria with my parents. That was I love the cuckoo clocks because we had one. But again, I was younger, so traveling, if I bring it would have been with camping. And so I can't say that was, we're 40 minutes from Disney. So it's fun I used to take the kids and we would go camping when Labor Day weekend would get out, because the Fort Wilderness campground would drop half off, and we could stay there for a week for cheap. So stitching then, I think there's nothing greater, than stitching outside while you're camping and relaxing. It's got a whole other element to it, but we haven't had a trailer or anything like that for a long time. But.
Yeah. Oh, I bring my stitching. My husband and I go on adventures, when he's off every other Monday, and I'll bring my stitching and try to put the last stitch in. I did my Land That I Love up at Mount St. Helens. I put my last stitch in, just having that, the same as you, just stitching outside and having that memory attached to it.
Yes.
Love it.
I could just imagine, I would love to stitch Mount Rushmore. I would love.
That'd be cool.
I don't want it to be all white or all gray. I don't know how I envision it.
Yeah.
But how cool would that be to be right there? And so that's a good, and I would love to go, since I don't, and the answer I have is not, I haven't done that. I think the one that would be so fabulous would be stitching at Williamsburg. Would love that.
That would be cool. Yeah.
I know they have a lot of samplers there in all the museums, and Yeah, that would be cool. I really didn't even, samplers to me wasn't even in my vocabulary until Flosstube. I love them, but I didn't have a love for them before.
That
I
was me
didn't.
too. Mhm.
Yeah. So it's a whole rabbit hole.
Yeah. I was always saying, if you go back into some of my older Flosstubers, I'll never stitch samplers. I'm not a sampler stitcher, blah, blah, blah. And then people are leaving comments. They're like, oh, remember when you said you were in a sampler stitcher? Well, I have a sampler wall now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you have to find that one.
Yeah.
You have to find that one that opens, the door to that little rabbit hole. But.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I did. I don't stitch reproduction samplers. I like the original samplers, but yeah, as soon as that door is open, it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Because then you need a whole nother wall for that.
I know, right? Well, I have them separated now because I do far more original and then obviously the model stitches. So that's primarily Twin Peaks behind us for the most part. And then I have because I have a lot less of the actual reproduction samplers, but I have about 5. About 5 done, not huge ones. Some of the hands across the sea, the little gems.
Yep, I like those.
Yeah, and they're fun. So I like to have some, but yeah, I have several kitted and ready, but
we just need more time and stitch factor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So what can you not do without for your stitching? Like your favorite go-to must-have besides the basics of,
These. That's it. I mean,
nice.
I have glasses. My girls tease me out, especially Olivia teases me. She's like, Mom, why don't you just wear glasses? I'm like, I can't because they don't give me enough. I had bifocals, trifocals.
Yeah.
I can't do it. They were making me crazy trying to adjust. So I just have my, they're 3.5 readers, but to read a pill bottle, they work, and to stitch, they work. And so I have the big, daylight, or it's not a dazer, but that thing's phenomenal. But yeah, I could never do any of it without my readers.
Yeah. I have the bifocals, and they're helping for now since I only do 18 count, but
right.
If I go any higher, I don't know.
The 32 count I can still do if I have my light, but I would say the 30s, I've done one. Haven't done much on 36, but I've done, I think it was Georgia Martha back there. I did on a 36 and I used the magnifier. I have it. I just tend to gravitate to what flows good.
Well, and it's easier. Yeah. It's whatever's easier.
Yeah.
So how do you decide on what you're going to work on next? Now that you're not just a monogamous stitcher.
I kind of went through that, and I probably bored everybody to death on my last Flosstube with it, but somebody had asked, and kind of primarily I stick with, I'm stitching on what I like and what I enjoy, but because I model stitch, I got to balance it out a little bit. So usually I've got some idea, but for the most part, it's kind of a balance. And then I find myself lately, if I pick up something at night and I'm going good and strong and it's 28 count, then I'm going to stitch on it during the day too. And I'll go through a good phase of night, day, night, and then I'll change. So I don't really have a good pattern. I would like in 2022 to stitch on, I'd like to do something really big for a Sunday stitch and stay committed to it. Because I have his eyes on the sparrow, I have considered the lilies, and I would like to dedicate a day, but I'm not even going to start it till 2022. Yeah.
I like that.
And then if I'm pushing for a finish, because like right now I've got a secret stitch that I think I'll finish tonight. And that one is the first one that I've not even been able to share snippets. So I'm excited, but I got to just keep my mouth shut, keep stitching.
That's going to be hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be hard.
Get that to the framer, and then then I'll finish the Santa one. And so just because all of a sudden it's like, I'll be fine and I'll rotate and I'll just stitch on what I want. And then eventually you're like, okay, it's time to get this finished, because you've got dates in your mind,
Right.
or goals. So that's really it. I don't have a rhyme or reason. I just try to always respect the fact that I eventually owe this to somebody, you know, but they're very good about, there's usually plenty of time. And I'm one of those with them where a lot of times I'll pick something. So there's no deadline. It's just when it gets, and unless we get talking and they'll be like, hey, what about for Expo? Would this work? And then all of a sudden that deadline gets created that you didn't have before.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Because the Lincoln sampler really wasn't meant for anything. It was just like One Nation Under God. It was kind of just like we were creating together, having fun. Okay, I'm going to get the linen. Hey, do you think you could have this?
Sure. No problem.
So, you know, it all works. So yeah, it's kind of like, but if I need a break, I take a break. If I need to switch, I switch, because why would I want to stitch on something that I'm not enjoying it?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no routine and no whip go. I think that's cool. I think it's cool, but I don't think I could live up to it. I couldn't live up to it.
Yeah.
So
I kind of do the same thing as you, like every 2 or 3 days or so, I may switch. It just all depends on how I'm feeling. If I'm feeling
I mean, I love saving fill-in for the day with fill. Like if I can get myself that, then I can just
mindless stitching. Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
So we're on to the last question.
Okay.
And this is my other favorite question that I ask. It's, what is the best thing that has happened to you within the past couple of years? Because it's been a rough couple of years.
Yeah. I would say it's twofold, because I think the farm was such a blessing and we learned so much. But then there's a time to learn where your limits are and where what you really want to get back to. So probably the biggest blessing is when we decided it was time to move and kind of change lifestyles, because we were not getting the time, like when you talk about going and just going to the beach, or him taking you to your surprise little day adventures. We were not having any of that, because if one person had any free time, you were out working on the farm.
Yeah.
And the other person was watching Philip. So just because of that element, I'm so glad we did it. And it was an incredible blessing. And I can remember all the great little things, you know, that happened. But at the same time, this has been that great feeling of we're in a nice community. We're waving at neighbors, you know, we can go for walks. Yeah. And the more I do, the more the stitchy community seems to grow. I mean, I guess it's grows. Yeah. The more I grow in it, the more I get back. I mean, I think that there's this, I know there's happy mail, and I know there's all this really wonderful, generous stuff that comes, but at the same time, I think it's more the other. It's this friendship and
I was gonna say the friendship that you create.
Yeah because for me, I mean, especially for me, there's not a lot of people that are like, hey, do you want to go? And yet in this community, there just seems like this, they're very compassionate, and it's really, you know, it's really nice. So like I've said tons of times, it's been a rough couple of years. This past year for our family was just like, wow, didn't expect any of that. And yet a lot of more people have had it way rougher. So it's just been a huge blessing to find this house, to get settled in, to watch 2 girls graduate. And I think it's the move that has brought this level of, because I used to still stitch, but I always worried what animal was going to break through what fence. You could never just relax. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if sometimes Randy, he works from home, which is awesome. But, if he travels, it would leave me, and I'm like, I don't consider myself afraid. Like, I have my fears. Like, I don't like heights. Like, you don't like the bridge. I don't like heights. I don't like the bridge. But, it's just one of those things where it's like, I didn't fear the dark of the farm or going out there. I just feared the unknown of like, nobody get hurt. Like, it's just one of those things. So here, I don't have to think about that, at all. And I can just really wrap my head around enjoying family time. And the girls, they're 19, they're doing their own thing, but they come and go. And like you said, I'm just happy to see them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm Maggie. Yeah. So I think it would be the move because it's given me back time. No, stop, Maggie, go. She made it. She's like,
Mom, give me attention. Give me attention. Like Shadow, except she's upstairs with Dad right now. So
this one's our senior dog. So yeah, we had 2 Goldens and she's our second. She's like 13. The kids will correct me, I'm sure. But yeah, she's a good girl, though.
She just wants loves. Well, yeah. I'm glad that the move, it seems to have, brought your family kind of together and brought you some peace and you're in a great community. So that's amazing.
Yeah. It's been fun to meet friends again, so
yeah,
but
very cool. Well, that's it for the interview. I appreciate you taking time out of your day and for being so open throughout the whole interview. I really appreciate it. And you'll have to keep us posted on how the art show goes and how when you show your quilt and all that kind of stuff. That'd be really cool.
Yeah. I will tag you in it so you can see, but I'm excited. I'm excited. Thank you so much for reaching out and having me. And now I feel like, buddy, and we'll go see the twins together.
Yeah, we should do that. Definitely.
We'll have our own retreat.
Right? We would have so much fun. That would be a blast.
Oh my God. That would be well, you're always welcome.
And you and I have so much in common that I've discovered through this, which is pretty cool. So that's really cool too. So
I think that's the great part too. In this community, it's like we might stitch on. You can bring your little guy with you, your little Chewbacca, what is it? Chupacabra, the Bigfoot, and I'll stitch on,
Yeah. Hey, that works. So we can still be friends.
That's exactly right.
All right, that's awesome. All right. Well, thanks so much for doing this, and we'll say bye to everybody on Flosstube.
Bye, guys.